Up till this point in my life, when I finally made the conscious decision to heal, to finally let go of the past, to let go of those wounds or to allow the wounds of the past to heal, to let go of those limiting belief systems that were indoctrinated into me. Before this moment in my life, I used a multitude of reasons to keep myself in a cycle of self hatred. However, there was nothing that compared to this one specific thing within my life. Nothing else paled in comparison to my height. That's right. What we now come to call the short king back in the day was just short, right? And this was something that I used perpetually to beat myself up, to view myself as lesser than, and essentially to devalue myself. Now, this isn't a new phenomenon. This didn't come from nowhere, right? These are belief systems that are indoctrinated into us from a very young age. We're told that we're inadequate, that we're not enough, that we're not good enough, and that something is flawed and broken about us. And so there are certain things that are pointed out about us, usually physical appearance, right? Though we're surrounded by people who claim to love us so, they may point out your weight. They may point out certain attributes around you. And one of the ones that's harped on, especially as men, is the one of height. And that was something that I faced throughout my life. I was always, the shortest and not the closest to shortest in class. And how did I know? Because they lined you up in accordance to height. Now, I'm thinking about this right now. It's like, of course, that's traumatic, especially in a space where they value you based on this characteristic. And so I was moving through life with the belief system that there was something wrong with me, that I was inadequate, that I was not good enough, that I was inherently flawed simply because of this one specific attribute about myself. And it wasn't just that, it was a coupling of not only is this what is valued in society, but this is what's valued from the opposite sex, the one that you are looking to get validation from. And as men, we are told that the highest form of validation is how women see you, right? Point blank period. As straight men, that's the messaging, is that your importance, your value in this life has nothing else to do with anything else besides this one thing. How valuable you are in the eyes of women is what makes you, now we call it quote unquote high value or alpha male, whatever it may be. But again, when I was growing up, it was simply, this is what makes you attractive, right? It was tall, dark, and handsome. These were the characteristics and the features that mattered. And so I felt left out of the equation. I felt that I didn't match up. I felt that I didn't measure up, all pun intended. And so I moved through life compensating. Now, I wasn't the type of dude who bought myself, a monster truck or whatever it was to compensate, but instead I looked to compensate in other ways. I looked to, sharpen up certain skill sets, social skill sets, right? My sense of humor, different aspects of my personality, which I'm thankful for obviously now, but back then I was using them as a means just to stand out enough. And I'll be honest, I didn't struggle, getting female validation as a kid or even as a teen or as a young man, etc. But I still viewed myself from the lens of something is wrong with me. I am inadequate. I'm not enough. And so what I did was I ignored that. I ignored those feelings. I pretended they didn't exist. I bottled them up. And instead, I projected that out onto the world. And so I would see people through a lens of, the physical characteristics, physical attributes. You become inherently shallow. This society teaches us to be shallow. And we blame this on biology. We blame this is the way that human beings are, when in truth, it is psychology. It's the way that we are socially conditioned. Psychology will always win out biology, right? You will do something simply to satisfy some sort of psychological need, such as an addiction, that will completely destroy your biology. So we can get into that in a whole different other time. But as for now, I came to realize that, again, I had this belief and a multitude of people had this belief. It wasn't just me, right? It was also others of the opposite sex. And so I continued to also see myself in the eyes of those others who were programmed to believe that, oh yeah, he's not enough. I'm not into dudes who are less than 6 feet or whatever the standard may have been at that point in time. Some of the standards are still the same. There's still a level of surface level or shallowness within our society. And I believe that might be there till kingdom come. It might be here forever and ever and ever done. But in reality, what was happening, or essentially what I realized about my projection, about my ways of moving through the world and seeing the world in a shallow perspective, it was nothing more than how I was viewing myself. The judgment that I was placing on the people around me was nothing more than the judgment I was placing upon myself during that period of my life, which was a majority of my life, right? Those ages when you're supposed to be having the growth spurt and you're supposed to, they're measuring you. Literally, the entire experience is being measured. Like I remember they put tally marks on the wall. How tall are you getting now? These are the metrics that we use. Nobody asks, what kind of human being is this child? What is their character like? The development of those internal attributes which actually matter, right? Instead, it was the external. And so you would even have people getting into relationship dynamics simply because of height. And you still have it now. You got grown folks who are just going off of physical characteristics. And I'll be honest, as somebody who is seen by some as good looking, as attractive physically, I still say, don't base a damn thing off of how somebody looks ever. Not even me. You got to know somebody's character. You got to get to know what that person actually is about and what they stand on. What are their habits, their characteristics? What are their patterns in life? As opposed to how does the person look, how good they look. The surface level is always going to trick you into all sorts of undesirable situations. You're going to end up in a toxic relationship dynamic if you base everything on the physical. I guarantee it, because it's inherently shallow. But I was living that same way, right? There's still attributes of me as the Aquarian that I am. There were still quirky things that, I admired in others and I was attracted to myself. So I wasn't 100% just on the physical, right? I wasn't like the BBL king or anything like that. I was still looking for certain parts of somebody's personality that resonated with me. But lo and behold, I was still living my life from this lens of, again, insecurity, which was projected onto others, but that was steeped in self-hatred. And it was a painful experience. That's why I buried it. That's why I made sure never to show it to the world. I didn't want anybody to see. I felt like it was like a stain on me. I felt like it was something that everybody was looking at and fixated upon. I can relate to somebody who feels, their ears are too big, nose too big, whatever it is that you have a belief about that makes you lesser than, that makes you less attractive or whatever it may be. I felt like the world was seeing me through that lens. And so I had to defend myself against that. I had to compensate. I had to people please, or I had to be more of an aggressor. Now, again, I wasn't the typical quote unquote Napoleon complex, as we like to call it, right? Which is just, it's wild that, short individuals are the ones who are labeled as having a Napoleon complex. But when it's somebody tall, whatever it is, they're just an angry person, right? I believe it's anger. And that usually comes from a state of, again, insecurity, whatever the insecurity may be, a feeling that you're inadequate, not good enough, a feeling that you're being threatened, a feeling that you're powerless, or whatever the story and narrative may be within your life. But nevertheless, I wasn't the type of person who became overly aggressive and, had to assert myself in a certain way. Instead, I became a social chameleon. I learned how to maneuver my way throughout society, throughout, certain social circles, etc., in order for people to perceive me as good enough. I was continuously and perpetually looking for a way to find validation out of those I wanted validation from. And most times it worked, right? When you become a chameleon and you become exactly what people, quote unquote, need you to be, then the people that you're trying to get the validation from accept you. Of course they do. They're going to take what they take. It's like if you're giving out free money, who's not going to take the free money, right? But you're giving it away as a means to compensate for something that you feel is inadequate, is lesser than. And this is the first time in my life, and I don't mean just today, right? This has been an experience. This has been a journey that I've gone through the healing process. And it started internally, realizing what the core issues were. And I've come to a place where I realized it never had anything to do with physical characteristics. It had everything to do with my belief about me. I did not believe that I was worthy of love. I did not believe that I was deserving of love. I believed that I was inadequate, that I was broken, that I was flawed. Some of these beliefs came from religion. Some of them came from, simply society. Some of them came from the generational bonds and what we call generational curses that move from generation to generation until, we have this here class of human beings that still believes the exact same thing as 6 generations back. Great, 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 great granddaddy's insecurities are still the insecurities we're dealing with now because nobody actually resolved them. We're still dealing with the very same wounds because nobody addressed them. That's what I was looking at. And I had to make a decision to myself to say, am I going to continue to perpetuate this? Am I going to continue to devalue myself off the basis of something that's so shallow? And again, I'm not saying that somebody who doesn't value height or whatever it is, like, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm not saying you're a bad person. If that's what you're into, that's perfectly fine. That's what also comes with this developed sense of inner security. I don't need you to see me in any certain way anymore. But again, that was a journey. I had to get to that place. It's the strangest thing that we oftentimes care so much about people seeing us or validating us that we don't even really care about, right? You might not even be interested in that person, but you want them to see you. Make that make sense for yourself. I couldn't make it make sense for myself, but yet I was doing that continuously. People I didn't even know, people I didn't even like half the time. I was trying to get them to view me as valuable, view me as enough, put me on some sort of pedestal in order for me to feel like I was worthy of love, really. That's all it comes down to. At the baseline of it is, am I worthy to be loved? And this is a message that resonates throughout our entire lives, from the time we're infants and where we're looking for parental love, we're looking for affection, we're looking to be seen, we're looking to be understood, we're looking to be valued. And we feel as if we're simply not good enough until we shift or change our character, until we do something, until we show up a certain way, right? You have a sibling and that sibling has blue eyes and you have brown eyes. And they say that sibling has beautiful eyes. And then what's the message that's told to you, right? This is the skinnier sibling and you're the bigger bone sibling. And the one who is skinny is the one who's they're so athletic, they're so gifted in sport, they're so this, they're so that, and then you feel as if you are the outcast. These are the ways in which we're indoctrinated to believe that we're lesser than based upon the most superficial values. you know the most superficial. And again, I'm as guilty as anybody. Viewing somebody as beautiful because of how they look or present themselves on the outside, as opposed to investigating who they truly are. What is your character? What are you about? Who are you? Not asking that question. And so when I started to ask myself that question, who am I? Beyond these physical ramifications or these physical attributes, these external factors of life, right? Which some people view as the only thing that exists. Some people think we're just the body and that's it, right? And they base everything off of biology. And they say, here's a hierarchy. If you are a gorilla, then you are the highest of the pecking order. And then everybody else just falls to the wayside. If you got the biggest muscles, then that makes you the most valuable human being within society or whatever it may be. Some people have that mentality. And to be honest with you, it comes from the very same place as I'm talking about, which is, again, a feeling of inadequacy. If you feel inadequate, you feel like you have to be dominant over others. Human beings are not inherently looking to dominate one another. This is programmed and conditioned into us by those power structures, quote unquote power structures. We give them power, right? Our power, those that we see in power. Those individuals would rather have us, again, divide and conquer than they would have us come together and collaborate, where we always win in collaboration. It's like music. When two artists from a different genre, two artists in the same genre come together as opposed to beefing, they make a whole lot more money. I'll tell you that. A whole lot more noise, a whole lot more influence. And of course, the two fan bases come together. That's how we are when we're collective as human beings. But we become so divisive, so against one another. We become so competitive. I've seen this within the world of women. I have such a deep reverence and value for the feminine, and I've gotten to observe so many beautiful things. But then there's also the dark side, just like there's a dark side of the masculine, and there's this vicious competitive spirit of comparison and continuously one-upment of one another. And this does nothing but tear us apart. And that's what it was doing within me. It was stripping me of my very essence, my soul. I felt as if I was empty continuously. And finally, I had to make a decision to say, bro, like, are we going to keep living life like this? Are we going to keep living life on the surface and not experiencing anything more and just hating ourselves? Is that what we're going to do? And when I finally came down to it, I said, no, I can't live like that. It was too much suffering. It had been too much suffering already. I had spent so much of my life beating myself up off of something I was born with, right? And innate, it's like race, right? Colorism and things of that nature that we sometimes get into, especially in this day and age, we're more vocal about. It's like, imagine hating yourself for being a darker complexion or a lighter complexion and then hating on one another or basing value off of that. It's insanity. This is the reason why the aliens ain't come down. They're looking at us like we lost our damn minds. They're like, they're still going off of what? Do they not know they're spiritual beings having a physical experience? Oh, they still don't get that? They're still in baby stage. They're still infants, you know? And that's what we are when we're surface level, when we're shallow, when we don't realize that we are the essence. The aspect of us that makes us who we are is what is within us. And if it reflects out in the outward, beautiful. But if we're judging just off of the external, I promise you'll get bamboozled and tricked the rest of your life. And you'll waste years of your life chasing waterfalls. You'll spend years of your life chasing all the wrong things. It's the same thing with, material possessions, externalities, things that you believe are going to make you happy, are going to, add to your collection. And we treat one another that way. Oh, you look like a good trophy to put on my shelf. Oh, you look like you'll look good on my arm so other people can validate me and see me as somebody. You understand me? So when I got to this place of accepting that I was worthy of love, that I was worthy of my own acceptance, that I was worthy of the good of life, not in spite of, because that's a whole nother thing. It's like, oh, well, some people say, well, you're good looking. Well, you're this. Well, you can speak well. Well, and I'm like, it's not about that. It's not about the compensation. It's not about, well, this instead of that, that instead of this. No, it's about seeing that you as you are, whatever it is that you look like, sound like, think, whatever, like all that makes up who you are. All of that makes up who you are. The inner and the outer is beauty. All of it is worthy of love and is deserving of love and is loved in this very moment. You just have to come back to realize that. And I had to come back to a realization. And when I did, and I started to accept myself finally, all of who I am and loving all of who I am, knowing that I was uniquely crafted and made with a purpose, with an intention, then I could start seeing others in that very same way. And the more I cultivated the inner beauty of myself, these inner aspects of who I am, not just smooth talking, slick talking, not just, using these things as a means for people to see me and pay attention to me and think I'm somebody, right? Instead, doing it for me, doing it for my own peace, doing it for my own validity in this life, to say, I belong here. I have a purpose here. I'm deserving to be here. Guys, the odds of you existing are 1 in 70 trillion. You existing is 1 in 70 trillion. So to view yourself as anything other than magnificent is a smite on God's name, is a smite on source, the smite on the creator, and is always going to be a smite on you. It's always, 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 always going to be self-destructive to believe that you're anything other than love, beautiful, precious, valued, valuable, and not valuable in the eyes of another. A person's value of you does not equate to your value. We have been tricked. We've been bamboozled. You've been told that that person over there is the one who equates your value. That quote unquote marketplace, right? They say the dating marketplace, and some folks will be like, oh, well, he's just saying that because he never got something. Look, I'll tell y'all straight up, short as I am, short king, this and that. I really wish that I had lived a different way sometimes. Like, I don't regret it necessarily, but again, I never had trouble in that space. I never had trouble when it came to relationships, when it came to, attracting the opposite sex. It just was never a problem for me. I was always tapped in and tuned in that way, to the point where I made it so important that I valued it more than myself. I was still using it as a sense of validation. I was using it as a sense of bragging rights, right? So this isn't me, smiting something that I don't understand. It's like when I talk about the party life, etc. Like, I was 14, 15 years old, already hooked to dope. 15 years old, already selling dope. You understand me? So I'm not coming from a place of, oh, bad them, good us. No, I'm saying this from a place of, bro, I was in that. I was in the trenches of that. I was in the dating marketplace and building up my worth and credentials within these spaces that don't exist anywhere besides our own psyche. We evaluate one another and we evaluate ourselves based on the other, as opposed to seeing our true intrinsic worth. And this is the reason why we continue to perpetuate the self-hatred, why we continue to perpetuate a feeling of worthlessness. And we will never heal so long as we are trying to view ourselves from the eyes of another. We will never heal so long as we believe that we need somebody else to validate us. So long as we base ourselves off of characteristics, physical or not, right? Even, oh, well, I'm a funny guy. If you base yourself off of funny, you're still using that as a tool to evaluate yourself. When I'm talking about your value, I'm talking about your essence, your core, your spirit, who you are, your connectedness to all that is. These are the aspects that we need to be getting back to. And it was only then when I finally came to a place of peace. I finally came to a place where I could accept myself. I was afraid to create this type of video back in the day, to be authentic and just tell it all as it is. And now that's all I can do is talk that talk. All I can do is tell you guys the God honest truth when it comes up, because I am no longer afraid of the consequences of how people are going to see me. Oh my God, are they going to see that something is off, something is wrong? Because nothing is wrong with me. I'm perfect as I am, as a you, all of who you are. Yes, you're going to go through a journey where you become and you realize and you remember all that you are and you shed certain layers. But right now, right here in this moment, you are perfect already. That's how you are seen through the eyes of the Creator. Already is perfect. It's not for you to develop yourself into somebody that's good enough. It's not for you to earn your way into good enough. Instead, you are already there. You are already it. You don't need to validate or evaluate yourself based on anything besides your existence, period. And I know that ain't a popular message because we've all been conditioned to believe you got to work your way there. The work you're doing is for you to be free from your own limiting beliefs. That's the work that we're doing. That's the work, right? The work is to get you back to a place where you remember who you are. That's the work. But it's not to validate you. It's not to say now you're good enough. Now you got 7 figures and you got a business worth 7 figures. Now you're good enough, right? Now you got some muscle on you. Now you're good enough. Now, you done built out the cakes. Now you're good enough. Absolutely not. Instead, we got to start looking at ourselves through a lens of I am loved and I'm worthy of love. And it will first feel so weird. It'll feel strange to you. It'll feel abnormal to say this to yourself because we've been telling ourselves the opposite narrative for so long. But the moment we make a decision to finally say, I am worthy of love, I am worthy to be accepted for all that I am, life begins on that day. Life begins on the day we start to value ourselves based on what we truly are, as opposed to what we've been conditioned to believe. And so when I let go of this thing of needing to be anything other than what I am, right? And I was never the Prince type, wearing high heels and stuff like that. We got the real thick soles nowadays, the real sandal joints, the Kanye S stuff, which gives you like 2 extra inches. But I never cared about doing those things. Again, I found different ways to compensate because frankly, 5'5", 5'6", like you ain't you ain't about to add a whole nothing, right? You ain't about to get some sandals about that big, and I'm not about to wear some heels. Just this, the inconvenience of it is all that is, right? I got nothing against if you want to do that, that's on you, but it seems like a real inconvenience. Ladies, I don't know how most of y'all do that, right? It takes a whole lot of effort, but you get some calves on you. That's what I know. But in all seriousness, again, it's not this thing of getting to a place where we find value in something else in order to cover up the thing that we're making the issue. Because the only reason we're making something an issue, right? And again, for me, it was height, but for other people, there's a multitude of things. I mean, I made multitudes of things within my life a problem, a reason to hate myself for, right? When I went to all white school, being black, that was a huge one. Damn near the length of my arms compared to other people because I'm African, like literally born and raised in Southern Africa. And I was like, damn, I got long arms, forgetting that this is how half of us look back on the continent. You understand me? So there's a multitude of things we will make reasons to not be good enough. Even as brothers, as men, like we'll say, man, if I ain't got this much in my bank account, I'm not deserving to be loved by a woman. And I'm gonna make a whole video on that one, right? Because that's another one we really got to overcome, and we shall overcome. But yeah, this belief that I'm not good enough unless I earn a certain amount. I'm not good enough unless I have a certain type of job. And this is being perpetuated with the ignorance in this generation where people believe that means something. Where a brother who's working, you understand me? To feed his family, doing his thing, working them 16-hour shifts, whatever it is viewed as a quote unquote lame because he's not scamming and selling dope. That's a mental illness, by the way, guys. That type of mentality is a mental illness. And, I don't subscribe to that. If that's cultural, I don't subscribe to that culture. The culture that I subscribe to is getting to a place where we're breaking these generational curses, where we are going deeper, where we're going within and introspecting and remembering who we are and remembering what makes us who we are, remembering that we are worthy of love in this very moment, period. Now, that being said, before I wrap up, quick plug of my first published book, Doing Me Guilt Free, Breaking Free from People Pleasing and Unleashing Your True Personal Power. Make sure to get yourself a copy of one of these by clicking the link below. Again, we got to get to a place where we let go of that need for external validation. And once we do that, everything is uphill, well, downhill, technically, in a good way. It's going to be easy. Once we let go of the need for other people to validate us, life becomes breezy. Appreciate you guys. Much love. Till the next time. Namaste. Namaskar.